Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We're glad you're along for the ride today. We're going to have Brent Beaird, our college football analyst, and we'll also have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. If you missed it last night or yesterday, Xavier Lee, the basketball recruit, point guard from Princeton, one of the top recruits in America, verbally committed to the University of Florida. So that looks pretty good there. Softball cranks up tonight against Alabama. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, I believe. And we'll take your questions, calls, and comments. Shoot them our way. Let's go to the Titan MRO hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. We're joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Hey, Shane, and good morning to you, and happy Easter to everyone. So we have got the majority of our spring games in the SEC already done, but we've got a few more left.
Yes, we do. I'm getting a million texts here. They're all coming in. I don't know if they didn't come in last night or if they're all coming in at one time here. But
Yeah.
Brent, the transfer portal for the spring session officially opened yesterday, correct?
Yes, it did.
And there's a ton of folks in it.
Yeah, more than, and this was fairly late last night. There were 1,000 players that entered the portal on Wednesday. Now there's about a 10-day period or something like that. So now, and again, the reason we're not having spring games on television is because of the portal opening basically either right in the middle or right toward the end of spring practice. So that's why that is happening, and the coaches and the officials with the NCAA and the appropriate committees they either need to get rid of the portal in the spring or they need to move it to another month. And again, folks need to remember SEC schools players cannot transfer to another SEC school during the spring.
And be eligible, right? They could transfer, but they'd have
Correct.
to sit out. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. They would not be playing immediately. Good point.
Yeah. SEC media. Well, first of all, I'm still waiting for that journalist, Brent, and I don't know if you want to take charge in this, that journalist to look back every year at how many people enter the transfer portal and how many are still stuck there and in their football career by going into the portal.
Way too many.
Yeah, there's a ton. So, all right, SEC Media Days are coming up in July. They've already announced what days and what schools go on which day.
Yeah, this is a little bit unusual that we got this so early. It's going to be back in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame. I'll buzz through this real quick. On Monday, July the 14th, LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Tuesday the 15th, Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. And then on Wednesday is Alabama, Florida, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. Then on Thursday, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, and A&M. And look, if the conference expands much more, Shane, we may end up one day going Monday through Friday.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I failed to mention for our basketball fans, Xavier Lee and Thomas Houck were high school teammates, which I thought was interesting. Spring game, as you said, most people have already had those. The attendance, the Mighty Gators had a bunch of folks at the game.
Sure did. Yeah, they've got the best attendance so far, 56,000. Ohio State had 40. Tennessee had 38. Georgia 35, Auburn 30. I've also seen close to 20, and different numbers on these teams. Oklahoma 16, Alabama 10 to 15, which is much lower than what they normally do.
I want to stop you there because Brent,
Yeah.
when's the last time Alabama had a day and only had 10 to 15,000 people at it?
Oh, it's probably been decades, frankly. I mean, when Nick Saban first came, as you remember, they had over 90,000 people at the spring game. But I mean, basically, it wasn't a day. It was more of a practice than it was anything else. So, folks didn't get real excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Franklin says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, safety Greg Smith is returning. Great news. Yeah, he obviously ironed out some kind of NIL deal. I did see that. All right, Brent, let's address the Nico situation. I think I I forgot this until I read your notes that Nico's the one that kind of started this nonsense when he was in high school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there was all these rumors, $8 million going to this high school kid who's still in high school. And it's bizarre to me. He's not a very good player in my opinion. I
True.
hope he turns out to be a great player. I hope I'm proved wrong, but I've seen him play and I don't think he's very good and his stats don't back it up. Just your thoughts on this whole Nico mess.
Well, I mean, he's at a crossroads in his football career. There's talk now that he's going to end up at UCLA. There are several reports about that. Now, he will end up at UCLA probably with a lot less money than he thought he would. He's gotten some really bad advice from his father and from his, quote, team. And one of the best things he could do is to get him some representation who is used to dealing with situations like this instead of going with his family. The thing that there's a couple of things here. One, as Shane said, Nico right now really is a very average quarterback. I mean, he's a middle of the pack SEC quarterback, and that basically is it. I mean, against Ohio State, he was 14 of 31 for 104 yards. I mean, you're not going to do anything with that. But here's the reality. The thing that to me is most disturbing is he was making some overtures before the Ohio State. This is a playoff game, folks, that he was going to be leaving unless he got the money that he wanted. So you can see why Ohio State beat Tennessee 42-17. Because how in the world can they be focused on that? And we'll get into this in the Tennessee section. The question now is, what does Tennessee do to get another quarterback? And as Shane said, hopefully Nico will have a good career, but he has got a lot of teams that maybe would have looked at him very seriously, but they look at who's representing him, and they do not want to deal with the headaches.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Tennessee's roster at all. I would think that Josh Heupel has a couple of somewhat high-profile guys at the quarterback position. I know they played in their spring game, but I will tell you this: I don't think they could be any worse than him. And this is not a knock against him. I watch a lot of college football. I saw him live. I saw him run out of bounds on the last play of a game. I don't think he has any at all quarterback instincts.
Agree.
So we'll see.
And to think about this, I mean, but basically the last two quarterbacks they've had, and Joe Milton and Nico, frankly, are not really good quarterbacks.
No, they're kind of the same guy.
They are, aren't they? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Josh Heupel is fortunate that when he got that job, Hendon Hooker was already there.
Correct.
He was a phenomenal college quarterback. Reese Davis, well, they were going to offer him a lot of money to go over to Fox, but he's going to stay with ESPN.
Yeah, and I'll be transparent about this. Reese and I are friends. He told me a few weeks ago that he came close to going to Fox, and they offered him a lot of money for that big noon kickoff situation, but he has re-upped. I believe it's another 7 years. Here's the thing about Reese. Reese really went through climbing the ladder at ESPN. I mean, when he first started at ESPN, he was doing. It wasn't NASCAR. It wasn't a NASCAR show. It was RPM Tonight. If anybody remembers that. I mean, it was like an open wheel type thing, if I got that terminology correct. He did a lot of women's sports, and so it was quite a while, frankly, before Reese got to doing college football. So congrats to him. I'm not surprised that Fox really wanted him. And again, he's staying. Just a quick reminder, this is Gary Danielson's last year coming up. Now he's still on CBS. He'll be replaced by Charles Davis, who does a good job too. Davis is a Tennessee grad, by the way. Charles Davis is. So congrats to Reese. He got a good deal. Glad for him. But Fox made a real strong run at him.
The Pouncey twins, Mike and Marquise, invite you to try the mango martinis at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, handcrafted with their J.F. Hayden liqueurs. Try those flavors and find your favorite at shopjfhaydens.com. We got Brent Beaird here, our college football analyst, on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We'll have Mike Morgan, second portion of today's show. Real quick, couple's texts on the Titan More text line. It says, "Good morning, guys." This is from Daryl. Shane says Florida has dudes now, but let's say the worst case scenario happens and DJ goes down. Is Harrison Bailey a solid enough backup to get us to 7 or 8 wins?
We really don't know, but I will say this: and you saw this in the spring game, the talent around whoever the quarterback's going to be, I think is pretty solid. I mean, these receivers were quite impressive. The running game is too, and if the offensive line is going to be a strength, and I think it could be, this offense is going to be very good. So hopefully Lagway would be back sooner than later and up and going. But I mean, Shane, as I look at them, and I mean, you broadcast them every week, I think this offense has some real potential.
I haven't been this excited in years about the offense. And I think we got some really good players on defense if they can just be healthy. Yes. Monty says on the Titan of our text line, Shane, did you see that Charlie Ward was hired as the head basketball coach at FAMU? Yes. I do a lot of business with Charlie with his high school that he was coaching high school. He bought all his uniforms and stuff from me. And Charlie's a good dude. And
he is.
He'll do a great job at FAMU for sure. He is the quietest, most soft-spoken human being you'll ever talk to.
I've interviewed him. He absolutely is. He's very thoughtful. Is that a good word to describe him, Shane?
Yeah. And it's crazy how good he was back in the day at Blue Sports. Crazy. Clint has a question for you, Brent, here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Brent, I believe we play in the SEC championship game this year. Am I crazy for that?
Look, at this point, I don't think anything's crazy. I mean, if they make as much progress as they did at the end of last year, I mean, anything is. We've really got a year this year to where almost anything can happen. I mean, Georgia will be among the favorites, but they've got a lot of rebuilding to do. I think Alabama will be better than they were last year. They'll certainly have a better quarterback, whoever it is, and I think it's going to be Ty Simpson. I mean, Texas with Arch will be, because he is playing this year, but we don't know what Arch is going to do over the course of a season. So, I think what I'm trying to say here is, at this point, I think it's a pretty even league, Shane, and really anything can happen.
Yeah, people talk about how tough our schedule is, and it's the same schedule. I don't think it's nearly as hard as it was last year because majority of the teams lost their quarterbacks.
They did.
Yeah. I don't think it's nearly as hard as it was last year. All right, Brent, let's go around the SEC. Alabama, what's going on in Tuscaloosa?
Well, they did have, again, their practice. Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, said if they had to play today, and they don't, but if they had to play today, Ty Simpson would be the starter. Now, Simpson, this would be his third year. Austin Mack, Keelan Russell. Keelan Russell is their freshman coming in. They really like him, but he's not ready to play in the SEC on a consistent basis. Austin Mack might be the odd man out. Frankly, he came from Washington with basically where DeBoer was. He's a good quarterback. He did struggle at times. One thing I also want to mention is Bill Oliver, the former defensive coordinator at Alabama, died this week at 85. Oliver, certainly well known for what happened with the Miami game in '93 and the Sugar Bowl. Let me put Oliver in perspective, and I'm curious your take on this, Shane. A couple of things here. A lot of people thought at some point that he and Coach Spurrier may be on the same team together. And I know they had great respect for each other, and I think they've done some consulting together. That would have been something else. But I'll say this, and I've talked to different people about this. If Bill Oliver in his prime was coaching today, he would be easily one of the best defensive coordinators in the nation, and he would be making, not Nico, but Bill Oliver would be making between $2 and $4 million a year as a coordinator.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Auburn Tigers, what's going on there on the Plains?
Yeah, they had their spring game. Also, the quarterback situation, I think it will be better at Auburn. Now, Deuce Knight is their freshman. He's coming in. He was a Notre Dame commitment in the beginning. They like him. Jackson Arlo is really going to be your quarterback. They've got some good receivers. Perry Thompson among those. They've had a few guys who've transferred out. Terrence Love has entered the transfer portal. But Shane, I'm really getting the point right now to where just because they enter the portal doesn't mean they're leaving, does it?
No, it does not. Not at all. What's going on in Gainesville?
I think a lot of optimism coming from the spring game, particularly with the receivers. Wilson was phenomenal. Dallas was great pickup late for the Gators. Vernell Brown, Nashawn Montgomery, those guys. I'd be curious I know you've talked about all of them, but Jacoby Jackson at running back was also very good. And again, sometimes spring games are more toward the offense than the defense, but man, oh man, these guys really showed out when they had the opportunity.
Yeah. Andy's got a question for you on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. What is your take on Deion retiring Shadur's and Travis Hunter's jersey numbers? And he also says that Rashawn Salam's number is retired. I didn't know if it was retired or not. He won the Heisman, but he says it is retired. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, obviously those guys had career years during their time at Colorado. Some folks like that, some folks don't. I don't have anything against it. They can do pretty much whatever they want to do. I think the only criticism I've heard is should these guys have played a few more years than they did? But Deion does things differently, and that goes on with it too. So we'll see.
Yeah, Travis Hunter's jersey needs to be retired. His son, no. Yeah. Cordell Stewart's is not even retired, so makes no sense. Georgia Bulldogs, what's going on in Athens?
Yeah, well, one of their running backs, Branson Robinson, is going in the portal.
He's a good player, man.
It really is.
State of Mississippi guy.
Shane, if you see Branson Robinson walking down the beach, people would run away from him because of how huge he is.
Yeah, he just has been injury prone ever since he got to Georgia, but was a phenomenal player there in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah. Now, I've read reports where Georgia's bringing in Jimmy Brumbaugh, who played at Keystone Heights. I covered him when I was writing for the Times-Union. Really was a good player. he's been a little bit of everywhere: Auburn, Tennessee, Colorado, Maryland, Kentucky, and Coastal Carolina. So good for him that he will be there. So, and Georgia's receivers are much better, we think. Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, who came from A&M, Branch came from USC, and London Humphreys is a guy they really like. Also, and Georgia has a lot of work. They got a lot of question marks, particularly at safety. But I mean, Georgia's got again a lot of talent. I do think Gunnar Stockton will be the quarterback. Shane, I'd be surprised if something different happens there.
Yeah. Text on the Titan More text line. I'm not sure who it's from. It says, what is the update with Asa Turner? I have no information. I don't see him playing for the Gators. He may be like a player coach or something, but he is not going to break into the lineup with the talent this team has now. No chance. Brent, what's up with LSU?
We mentioned this a few weeks ago. John Emery, who is looking to play in his 7th year, had mentioned on social media that that he was looking forward to coming back to his 7th year at LSU. Well, they asked Brian Kelly about that, and Brian Kelly kind of said, "Well, that's not quite in our plans." So John Emery's in the portal. He's looking for another school. Kelly was complimentary of him, but they're moving on. Got a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier from the defense in the spring game. Xavier Thomas was impressive. Caden Durham. I mean, look, as we like to say, LSU always has dudes, and they do this year. There's no question about that. So, but again, and they need to win their opener. We say this from time to time, but LSU's lost and they played good teams like FSU a few years ago, but LSU, and they lost to USC last year, but LSU's lost like 5 or 6 openers in a row, something we thought we'd never see.
Chris from Iacca has a question for you, Brent, on the Titan More text line. Asked Brent if he got a chance to watch Lane Kiffin on the Theo Vaughn podcast yesterday. Sounds lukewarm. Lane has finally calmed down in Oxford and become an adult.
Well, listen, that's a good observation, and I know you're close to that program, and I would agree with that. Listen, Lane has improved as a coach. He's improved as a human being. He has matured, and he has done an incredible job at Ole Miss. I still think Lane's is a very, very good football coach. Great mind, offensively. And, his family's there. Now, look, will he be there forever? No, because he'll have other opportunities. But I think that's a good observation, Shane, with them. We all grow up from time to time. And when you just listen to him speak now, to me, I'm not saying he's a totally different person, but you can tell how much he has settled down and how much he's matured.
Yeah, it's a good fit for both Ole Miss and Lane, and
Yes,
he can stay there as long as he wants. That's the thing. Wally Gator says, I think Lane has finally realized he's got to grow up a little bit in order to get out of Oxford. I don't know if he wants to get out of Oxford. There's only a couple schools that he's going to leave for.
Oh, yeah.
And,
and look, Shane, he's almost making what, $10 million a year too.
Yeah, living in Oxford, Mississippi, that goes a long ways. Trust me.
Sure does.
Give us some nuggets before we get you out of here, Brent.
Yeah, Kentucky, they had their spring game. We mentioned a possible 7th year for Emory. Also, Zach Calzada is going to be the quarterback at Kentucky, or at least he is coming out of the spring. Shane, can you believe that? Calzada, as you remember, was at Texas A&M. Now he is number 1. Number 2 is Cutter Boley at Kentucky. So I think it's a big year for them. Mississippi State is doing better. I know it's still in rebuild, but at least they've got more people now on the roster. That's a big help. Oklahoma just cannot stay healthy at wide receiver. Giovanni Gibson is one guy they brought in they really like, but Shaney had some kind of freak injury and broke his leg. So that's tough to see with that. And speaking of Ole Miss, and Lane actually mentioned this on that interview, that they were looking at the possibility of Jackson Dart getting another year. They checked into it, and it looked like it wasn't going to work. But, I mean, the reality is Jackson Dart's going to the NFL, and I think he'll be a good quarterback. South Carolina has their spring game not Saturday, but Friday night. So that's a little bit different. And if you're looking for a spring game on television, you will find one Saturday at 3 o'clock on the SEC network. Texas A&M is actually having their spring game televised on the network. So Miami had their spring game, and I think the biggest thing is Carson Beck, you probably commented on this, started throwing this week. And I'm not sure he's putting a lot of zip on it, but he is throwing, and FSU is ending their last full week of practice this week.
I wanted to bring this up because I saw a comment about back to the Nico situation. It was about money, then it was about the offense at Tennessee. It was about they didn't recruit good offensive linemen, they didn't recruit good receivers. What's interesting is I don't have it in front of me, but I think one of them, Squirrel White, went to Florida State, but all his receivers transferred out.
Yeah, a lot of them did. That's true.
Maybe Nico's the problem.
Well, look, what happened in Tennessee last year is Dylan Sampson at running back, and that front seven with James Pierce, who I know you've commented on, who's going to the NFL. That's why Tennessee won. But to be frank with you, it wasn't because of Nico. So that there's a little perspective on the Tennessee situation.
Yeah, and then Florida State did not have. I don't think they have in a spring game, but
they're not.
Would you say right now their quarterback is going to be the Constellelis?
Yeah, Thomas Castellanos from Boston College. Yes, yeah, I think he will be. He's and Shane, I don't know how this is going to shake out, but I think he's a better runner than he is a passer.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what Gus wants. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago that when Gus probably had his best Auburn team, it's when Nick Marshall was a running quarterback, and this kid's kind of like him. So we'll see. Brent, good stuff as always. Have a great Easter, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
You too, brother. Always enjoy it. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Take a quick time out, come back. Hoping to have Mike Morgan. I don't know if he's a no-show today or no, he's here. We'll be talking to Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Meals Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Signs, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Unleash the Inferno.
Naysayers, setbacks, Injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios. There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo Car Wash, locally owned by UF alum and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes. Locations on Northwest 13th Street and Southwest Williston Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Back to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, our good friend from the SEC Network, Mike Morgan. Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Good morning, Shane. Good morning, PodUp Nation. Hope all is well. Enjoying some good weather. I'm actually in Columbia this weekend to call the series against Ole Miss, so a little baseball sprinkled in here. And South Carolina's got their spring game on Friday night, and much like Florida's, they're not televised anymore. We used to do these all the time, and it's pretty obvious to me that the coaches are over it. It used to be like, the 2-hour window of exposure, and it's like an infomercial for the program, and we can find out a little bit about ourselves and the process, and the fans get to. Now it's like, I got to worry about the portal. I got to worry about injuries. I got to worry about people trying to steal my players. I'm okay with you not broadcasting it. And I think, quite frankly, we're not too far away from, I'm okay with just not having a spring game, period. I really think that's, as much as people would love to see an era, and I'd love to see it, I'm sure you'd love to see it, where we do like a scrimmage against another team, like they do in basketball all the time, or baseball. I don't think we're going there either. I just think they're going to live in their bubble. They're going to get their practices in. They're going to go ones on twos, and they're not going to have anybody on the other side of the line of scrimmage and nobody in the stands.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Are you in Columbia this weekend or Oxford?
I am. Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh, I was going to say, dang, you're going to Oxford, you're going to have fun.
The beer showers, man. I do love doing games at Swayze Field. That's a cool spot.
Yeah, it is. 31 Ember says here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. He says, coaches leave for more money all the time before the postseason, and it's considered a business decision. Miss me with the outrage. It's you're comparing apples and oranges, because when a coach leaves, somebody is paying a buyout.
Right.
That's not the case with these players. And it should.
It's a straw man argument, because it's not the same thing. I think, Shane, as I listen to some of the national people, there's a lot of NFL guys that pop up on, former NFL guys like yourself, but not as wise as yourself, pop up on TV, and they start talking about it always comes from a place where the college football or basketball player, they don't care about baseball, they don't care about golf or gymnastics, but they get real sensitive when they talk about college football and basketball players. And every opinion is through the prism of their victims. They get a raw deal. They've always gotten a raw deal, and now they're getting money, which they should have all along. And I don't know. I have never spoken to a single coach, and I've spoken to several, sat there in meetings and gotten their thoughts about the state of college athletics under NIL and everything else. None of them have ever said, I hate the fact that we're paying players. That's not the issue. Mm. And then these same talking heads, if you would have had the NCAA is powerless, folks. You got to get that out of your head. The NCAA is a feckless organization that's an event planner for the other 88 sports and their championships. They have no power in college football, okay? So they would have been dunked on in court if there would have been a lawsuit, and they would have lost it like every other lawsuit. Where this thing is off the rails is that this all came down the pipe at the same time, and they had absolutely no guardrails in place. And to your listeners' example, well, coaches do it all the time. Coaches have contracts and buyouts. Correct. So you don't just leave without a penalty. You don't just do that. And how often do you see a coach go somewhere for 1 year, and then threaten to leave for another job after 1 year if they don't pay him more money. I mean, it's extremely rare. And if he does do that, like you said, the buyouts are in place. So until we have buyouts in place, I'm assuming this was on the heels of Nico. If Nico had what coaches have, he couldn't just do that because there would be a buyout in place, which would make him even more undesirable as he is right now because no one's paying him $4 million. I don't believe, unless I missed something this morning, Shane.
No.
I don't see any. If he goes to UCLA, great. That makes a lot of sense, and they could use something over there to rejuvenate that program. But not for $4 million. They won't.
They don't have the
They've been
money. I mean,
thrifty. No.
yeah,
They can barely pay the
UCLA is a
light
bad
bill over
football
there.
program right now. Speaking of that, I don't know if you saw it the other day. We brought this up since we're on this, it was the coach at Grambling. He said that he feels like if he develops a kid, and I use Kerwin as an example because Kerwin lost a lot of his players to group of fives and power fours as backups.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That those schools should pay the smaller school a buyout to get those players. I kind of like that personally.
That's interesting. And again, that's what we do in coaching, right? When a coach leaves amid. So when Billy Napier leaves Louisiana for Florida, there's a buyout, right? Yeah. So Louisiana theoretically, I don't know what the terms of his deal was, but if it's like anybody else's, Louisiana got paid. I mean, they got some money out of the deal. Doesn't mean they wanted to lose Billy Napier. They'd rather have Billy Napier in all likelihood. He was doing a good job there. But that is the compensation plan. I don't disagree with any of that. I think we're a long ways away from getting to that point. I think the first thing we're trying to establish is this house settlement deal has to come through. So everybody gets $21.5 million. That's going to escalate 22, 23 over time with the TV money. And then they got to figure out, and this is the devil's in the detail, Shane. What are you going to do with NIL? Because supposedly what they're going to do now is it's going to be legit NIL. It's not going to be pay for play. You're going to have to prove that you're worth that $5 million deal. You can't just sign a couple autographs or put something out on Twitter that says, I love Douglas Chevrolet and you should too. Like, that's not going to be enough. But who's going to monitor that? This is why I say, why I believe the rich will remain richer. And if you're below that standard and you don't have those financial resources and boosters and everything else, you're not going to be able to escalate or jump up. It's not going to be true salary cap like we have in the NFL, where every team can compete and go to the Super Bowl because they all have the same money that they're dealing with. I don't think we're ever getting there in college sports, but I think some people have the illusion that when this thing is finally passed, everybody's working with the same amount of money, and therefore it'll be even Steven across the board. I don't see that being the case.
Yeah. And again, it's still not name, image, and likeness. It's pay for play. That's
pay for play, and it's pay for stay. And Shane, it's pay for stay because and a lot of people were shocked at this when the report came out, and Josh Pate was one of the people that had it, that Nico threatened to not play in the playoff if he didn't get more money. I know for a fact that's not the only SEC school that had athletes threaten to not play if they didn't get more money. That is a real thing. Now, could you imagine if an NFL player did that? Yeah, we got our playoff game at Kansas City in week 1. I've decided I'm not going to play quarterback unless you give me an extra $500,000. Otherwise, I quit. That's where, I mean, these kids they want to be treated like pros, but the reality is that's not how it works in the pros. You can't do that.
No. It's a mess. It's a mess. Switching gears a little bit, basketball. The Gators, I don't know if you heard this, probably did, but they got a verbal commitment by Xavier Lee, the #1 point guard from Princeton. Did you ever call any of his games or see him play?
No. Our man Freddie texted me a picture of him and Hauk back in high school. It was pretty cool. Who knew that there was that much talent coming out of 20 minutes near Amish country?
Yeah, it's I mean he's got a lot of Walter Clayton game in him, But that's a
Yeah,
big pickup for the Gators, and I'm sure we'll have a couple more that sign here in the next couple of weeks with the portal being open. We've had a couple people ask your draft questions since you love the draft.
I do.
Somebody a few minutes ago said, "Who do you think the Jaguars should take?"
Oh gosh, what number are they? I don't have that in front of me.
I don't have it either.
Do we know?
Maybe five, six? Number five.
Number 5. Uh, well, they're not going quarterback, so that takes that off the board. Abdul Carter is going to be gone. That takes him off the board. The Jaguars need a lot. Now they struck gold with the kid from LSU, the Thomas kid at wide receiver. So they got some dudes, they got some weapons, some skilled guys. I would imagine that they could use some help on the line of scrimmage and overall on that defense. So then you start thinking of, okay, well, who are the best guys out there at those? Maybe like a Will Campbell out of LSU. He's going to be a top 10 pick. That's a left tackle, and I don't know the Jaguars left tackle off the top of my head, but that's a left tackle that you can probably draft and know he'll be there and start for you for 10 years. Might be one of the safest picks in the draft. Barely he gave up like 2 sacks his entire time blocking for LSU and blocking at the left tackle position.
Large Fry on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum, says, "A sign of the times. We reportedly beat out Kansas for Xavier." Well, he took a visit there, I believe. But Kansas is the old blue blood. Again,
Right.
if you look at what's happened in the last 20 years of basketball, Florida's done more than Kansas.
100%. I think I said it on your show a couple weeks ago. Florida basketball is back. You are now looking at the Billy Donovan era of recruiting, in that you'll see players start listing their blue bloods of traditional blue bloods. So and so is considering Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, and Florida. That's what it was like under Billy Donovan for about a decade. Once Billy got it going, once Mike Miller got it going, and the Final Four team of 2000, before you knew it, when you followed recruiting, it was fun to follow basketball recruiting if you were a Gator fan, because Florida was in on almost everybody. That was the power of Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan put the program on the map as a national power, and it was cool for 17-year-olds to consider playing basketball in Gainesville. Now, Florida lost that, and now I think it's back. And again, I think the biggest strength of this staff, and I am concerned about anytime you lose 2 really good assistants. You made a great point, Shane, about it's like losing your OC and DC in football. That's no small thing. But one thing about Todd Golden, and I'm sure the new guys that have come in to replace the old assistants, their evaluation of talent has been amazing. I mean, that to me is the biggest skill that they've displayed of all, because it can't be said enough. That roster that just won a national title, forget about McDonald's All-Americans. They don't even a lot of those kids were not even like the second tier guys. It was a diamond in the rough roster that cut through the SEC like a hot knife through butter in the SEC tournament, dominated much of the regular season, and then showed incredible resolve, trailing in 4 of the 6 games to win a national title. You don't do that unless you recruit the right type of kids. And he did that. That staff did that, and they did it without getting a bunch of blue chip guys. So I think that acumen, that skill remains. And then now you compound that with, you're going to be in the conversation for a bunch of high school kids that never were looking at Florida before.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's where hopefully the fan base, when it comes recruiting season, regardless of the sport, right? You don't know who's going to pan out and be a great player. It's usually we need all the 5-star this, 5-star that. Well, this team had none and won the national title, so it's pretty cool for sure.
No, and I'll still say this, Shane, in basketball, what I think is very interesting about it, older wins. Older is better. If it was all about who gets the most blue chip high school kids, John Calipari would have half a dozen national championships. Instead, he hadn't won one since 2012. You got to have 21, 22, 23-year-olds if you're going to the Final Four. Now, some of those will be kids you grew up in the system, and the fact that they got Condon and Houck already, such good players as sophomores, but they don't win it without dudes, grown men like Clayton, like Elijah Martin, that went ahead and like a Will Richard, who seemingly was around for 17 years. That's the winning formula now. So they'll continue to get kids in the portal. I think you have to be a big factor in the portal if you're going to win titles.
True. Large Fry says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Mike, you're older than most, laugh out loud. Do you have any older Rowdy Reptile merch than my year 2000 old gray Rowdy t-shirt? I don't think the Rowdy Reptiles were around when Mike was in school.
No, so I graduated late 90s. Merch,
I don't know when they started becoming the Rowdy Reptiles.
Well, it was under Billy.
Was it under Billy?
It was under Billy. It wasn't under Lon Kruger. They didn't have like a fancy nickname. And I think Dick Vitale, if he didn't coin the phrase, he definitely, whenever Dick Vitale was doing a Florida game, and of course he lives in Florida, he loved saying Rowdy Reptiles. He loved hyping up that student section. And so everybody knew Rowdy Reptiles, Rowdy Reptiles. But yeah, that became a thing under Billy. Again, when Billy got it going. And Florida, to their credit, regardless of the AD or the coach, they kept the students right there on the floor. Those are premier seats. They could make a lot more money if they just sold those to alums and donors, but they have let the students continue to be a factor. In terms of merchandise, one of my most prized possessions, and I've got the posters. I've got you in a 91 SEC championship poster. A couple guys holding Spurrier up on their shoulders. I've got the Final Four 94 team, which I covered, and I have a T-shirt that has every bar, including the purple porpoise.
Nice.
From the 90s. So yeah, you have to be of a certain age to know some of those. A couple of them are still around. Most of them have gone the way of the dodo, but that might be my favorite. That T-shirt. My wife's like, "Are you really keeping this thing?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'm keeping this T-shirt. This is history right here."
We got a couple of texts here before we get you out of here. This has been a hot topic in the last day or two. Jimmy wants to know your thoughts on Dion retiring his son's jersey number.
Okay, this is where, again, if you're over the age of 40, and you and I are, you remember when Colorado was a power. Correct. So you remember names like Cordell Stewart, Michael Westbrook, Eric Bieniemy, Chad Brown is a guy that I've actually done some games with on national radio. These were all players that were better than Shedeur Sanders, and they're not retired. Their numbers aren't retired. So look, it's I don't get upset over this stuff. I could care less what they do in Boulder, which is a beautiful place, by the way. I do enjoy going there. But no, it's another indicator that basically Dion could say, "Hey, you know what? I think we want to change our mascot to the Aardvarks," and they'd be like, "Okay, Prime, we'll do that. Sure, absolutely, yes, sir, yes, sir." Like they'll do whatever he wants. And so obviously there was no pushback. Like nobody was going to say, yeah, we've had a lot of really good players come through here and their numbers aren't on the stadium. And your son just finished getting worked over by BYU in a bowl game a few months ago. So maybe we got to wait a few years before. They're just going to be like, whatever you want, Prime, whatever you want. So I had to laugh at it when I saw that. But, again, whatever they want to do, it's their operation.
Chris Amayak on the Titan Mar text line says, ask Mike if he thinks Condon is just testing the NBA waters by declaring for the draft, but will end up back in a Gator uniform. I don't think he is ready for pro basketball yet unless he wants to go overseas.
Without knowing his family situation, I know his family situation, but I don't know exactly what's in the bank account and all that stuff. That's a little bit personal. Every board I see, Shane, he could easily be a late first-round pick. A late first-round pick is guaranteed, I think it's between $2 and $3 million a year. So it's the question's not whether he's ready or not, because the NBA, unlike the NFL, They draft on upside. So what they're going to see is a 6'11" long kid who plays hard. His shot is decent. It's not great, but it's decent. I know your thoughts on this. I've heard you say he's not ready, and I don't disagree with you. I think another year would be very beneficial for him because I think the way that kid works, if you give him another year, hell, he could turn himself into a lottery pick. But I never outrule the fact that if you throw seven figures in the face of a 19, 20-year-old kid, that might be too much to say no. So, no, I don't think he's just testing the waters. I think there's always the potential when you are getting grades, draft grades that say late first, early second, there's still potential that he might go. I do certainly agree he would be much better off staying another year and skyrocketing up that draft board. Because what happens, let's say he goes 29th to the whatever. He goes to training camp. The money's in the bank. So, you get the $2.3 million, whatever it is. And then they realize you're not ready. You're playing in the G League. And Shane, if you've ever watched a G League basketball game,
I haven't.
it's pretty depressing, actually. I mean, I'd rather go play in the old intramural league back in Gainesville than play in the G League. It's not fun. It's not glorious. You're playing in front of a couple hundred people. Your travel is not like it is in the NBA. And sometimes I think when a kid does that, they start thinking, maybe I should have stayed another year. So I don't know if that's going to go through the mind of Alex Condon or not, but I think all those things are weighing heavily on his decision.
Yeah, and Rick says here Cordell Stewart's numbers are not as good as Sanders, but Cordell threw it probably about 22 times a game.
Oh, gosh.
He threw it like 50 times a game.
I don't care what the numbers say. Yeah, of course, they don't play any defense anymore in the Big 12.
Right.
Cordell Stewart was a dude.
He was very
like
good.
you remember, I mean, he wasn't a great NFL quarterback, although he was decent. And they turned him into slash. Remember that? They were playing him at like all these different positions. He was the initial slash guy. But Cordell was a damn force as a quarterback at Colorado back in the day.
Yeah, we got 2 minutes left. I want to get your thoughts. NBA playoffs have started. Who you got winning the championship?
I mean, the Celtics to me are the team to beat. You know what the media wants. They want Boston, LA. They want the defending champs against LeBron and Luka. And I am not a LeBron fan, and I love Luka. So I'm really torn. And I've always been a Celtic guy, not a Laker guy. So for me, I would love to see Luka go deep, but I don't want to see LaFlop and have to watch that again. I'm a little torn on that, but I think the Celtics are the most ready-made championship team. I think they're the team to beat. There's nothing not to like about that team. They defend, they hit the three. They got Methuselah Horford still making shots and making plays at 75 years old. So yeah, I still would pick Boston if I had to pick somebody.
Yeah. David wants to know how much was Condon making in NIL money. I don't know if that's public knowledge. I have no idea.
Don't know. I can tell you this: it's not what he would make as a late first-round pick.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike, good stuff. Let everybody know how they can listen to your podcast, my friend.
Yeah, JC and Morgan. We just had, speaking of the whole Nico thing, and I'm sure you guys have covered that quite a bit. Bill King, who has hosted a talk show in Nashville for years, he was on with us yesterday. You can still tune in and listen. It's free. It's on every format. YouTube. I love our YouTube audience. We've got like the very pretty pictures like you have. And we talked about that. We talked about just, where we are with spring football and what is going to be the future of all this, Shane, because all the things that people like yourself hate seeing infiltrate college football, it is like front and center. And the Nico thing was bound to happen with somebody. It just happened to be Nico. The funny thing about it is,
I said this with Brent Beaird. Remember when all this NIL nonsense started, he was in high school, and you heard the reports that Tennessee's offering this kid $8 million to come play quarterback. It started with him, and it's a mess. It's a mess.
Well, the thing is, he's not that good.
He's not.
Shane, he's just not that good.
He's not good at all.
I would love to. He's remarkably, by that standard, he's remarkably average. Like if you compared him last year to Cam Ward and a Shador Sanders and a Jackson Dart, and like he's just not that
He was
good.
probably the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league. If even that,
Yeah.
even if that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
You know what his signature moment is?
running out of bounds on the last play of the game.
Running out of bounds against Arkansas. Like that's when I think of Nico. I don't think of just these major drives or plays. I think of him running out of bounds with the game on the line. And you're right that you can't throw it in the end zone. Look, I don't hate the kid. I think he's getting really bad advice. Unfortunately, I've actually heard he's a really nice kid. But somebody's in his head, whether it's dad or an advisor, and I think they really